Hello, in this tutorial I will demonstrate how to use Logger Pro for video analysis. This is a very useful tool to be able to closely analyze motion through the use of graphs. First I will open up a blank Logger Pro file and will insert the movie clip I want to analyze. There are a number of different video formats that work in Logger Pro, but not all, so be aware that some video formats might need to be converted. First I go to Insert on the pull-down menu and choose Movie. Then I will navigate to the clip that I want, which shows a constant motion vehicle moving along the floor. You will notice the usual playback buttons and a rectangular slider here at the bottom of the screen. It is always a good idea to play your video through first to see how it all looks in Logger Pro. You will see that a ruler is in the background of the video, which is used to set the scale so our graphs are accurate. Now I will click on this button at the bottom of the screen here to access the Video Analysis toolbar. This brings up a series of buttons on the right-hand side of the video to help me do my analysis. The first thing I will do is choose the Set Scale button, which is the horizontal yellow ruler here. Once I choose this, I'm going to navigate back a little bit to the beginning of the video so that I can have a clear view of my ruler here. So I'm going to set the scale by choosing this ruler, and once I choose that, the cursor turns into a crosshair, which I'm going to click and drag across the ruler. When I do that, a dialog box will come up and ask me how long that image is. So I know that this is a 30 centimeter ruler, so that's 0.3 meters. The next step is to start adding points. I'm going to start this when the vehicle is near the beginning of its motion. It's important to carefully choose a point on your object to track throughout the motion. If the object is moving quickly, often the video becomes blurred and it is difficult to track the same point all the way through the motion. That is not the case here, and I will choose to track the blinking light that is on the back of the car. I'm going to start here near the beginning of the motion. When I see that blinking light, I'm going to click on the Add Point button, which is this red one with the crosshairs coming out. And again, the cursor is going to become a crosshairs. I will line up the crosshairs with that blinking light and click. When I click, it becomes a blue dot is placed on the video and it advances one frame. You can continue to carefully add points as the video advances. Because this is a simple and predictable motion, I do not need to add a point at every single frame. So I'm going to advance several frames using the fast forward buttons, double arrow button here at the bottom of the screen. So I'm going to advance several frames in between where I click my add point. Logger Pro keeps track of the number of frames that are skipped in between added points, so you don't need to worry about how many frames are skipped. There is a frame count at the top of the screen. Here I will click through the motion, adding just enough points so that we can see the general shape of the graph for this tutorial. Add a few more points here. Sometimes in some videos you want to look at every single frame, and this part is important to do. It is important to take your time with this part of the analysis and track the object carefully to obtain accurate graphs that truly reflect the motion. Let me put in 2 more points here. 1 here. You can see a graph that's showing up behind this video on the graphs behind. Now, one thing I want to show you is what to do if you accidentally create a point. So let's suppose up here I accidentally clicked and created this point up here. In order to delete that, what you want to do is you want to go to this white pointer arrow and click on the point that you don't want. When you click on it, a blue line will appear around it, and then you can use the delete button on your keyboard, not the backspace, but delete, in order to delete that point. When you're finished adding points, click on the white arrow so you don't mistakenly add any extraneous points. Then I'm going to use the Control-R keyboard combination to arrange the windows in Logger Pro. You can see that 2 graphs are displayed here. The red data indicate the X or horizontal position of the car, and the blue data show the Y or vertical position. To only show the X motion, which is what we're interested in here, I'm going to double-click on the graph to bring up the Graph Options dialog box. Then I'm going to click on the Axes Options tab at the top and click off the box with the Y variable. So here this dialog box is showing me the data that is being displayed on this graph. So I do not want to see the Y position data because my car is not moving in the Y direction. So I'm only going to have on the X position data. So I'm going to click Done. That's always the place you will go to have Logger Pro display the correct data. Obviously, we have a clear relationship between the horizontal position X and time. However, the graph does not start at 0. To make the vertical axis start at a position of 0, we need to set the origin on the video. In order to do this, I'm going to use the slider to navigate back to the very first frame of the video where I had my first blue dot. So using these frame by frame, here I'm going to advance to the frame here that was the very first frame where we had our blue dot, and now I'm going to click on this Set Origin tool. And when I navigate over here again, it turns into a crosshair, so I'm going to put it just over that blue dot. And then you'll see these two yellow lines appear, which are the two yellow axes. These axes can be rotated by clicking and dragging on the yellow dot that is on this horizontal axis. This is the tool you would use if you were, for instance, analyzing some motion of a ball rolling down a ramp and you need to change your coordinate system. But for here, I want my coordinate system to be, my axes to be parallel and perpendicular to the motion of the car. Now we see that my vertical axis is started at 0, and now I want my time axis to also start at 0. So in order to do that, I'm going to click on this button down here, which is the Sync Movie to Graph button. So the frame that I'm on right now, which is the very first frame in the video, is where I want my graph to start at 0. So in this dialog box, I'm going to make the graph time for this frame be 0. And when I click OK, we'll see now that my graph, the time part, also starts at 0. Now we're ready to work with our graphs. Let's add another graph to show the velocity of the car. I'm going to click on Insert on the pull-down menu and then Graph. And Logger Pro is going to try to guess what graph it is that I want to show. I'm going to use Control-R to arrange my graphs, and then I want a different set of data to show on this graph here. So I'm going to double-click on this graph and go to the Axes Options, and Logger Pro guessed that I wanted to see the Y velocity, but I'm going to turn off Y velocity and turn on X velocity. I want to see a graph of the X velocity of the car. So here we have the horizontal velocity, which we expect to be constant in a horizontal line. This doesn't quite look like a horizontal line because of the scale. I'm going to go back to the Axes Options under this graph and go to Scaling here, and I'm going to change this to Manual. And I'm going to make the top value be 1 and the bottom value be 0. And click Done. And that makes our graph look a little bit more like a horizontal line, which is what we expect for the constant motion of this car. There are lots of other types of analysis that could be done at this point. I could include titles, I could fit lines, but that is the end of this introductory tutorial.